So believe it or not, your console, if you're buying them in this generation, the PS5 and the Series X, are gaming PCs. I briefly alluded to this in my last video, and I thought I'd shed a little bit more light in this video. And so let's go ahead and look at why I say so, or I guess I shouldn't say why I say so, or actually I should say why that is the case, because we can show the hardware nature, and I'm talking about the hardware specs of what is in your PlayStation 5. We can also show the hardware specs of some of the components inside of the Series X. Now, I also want to take this opportunity to say that this is probably going to be like more of what I think is a criticism to these consoles and how they got exposed by the quick changing nature of a technology war that had been going on between AMD, Nvidia, and Intel in some aspects, but mainly AMD and Intel were in the core battle, and then Nvidia and AMD were also in a direct competitive, I would say challenge against one another, and then Intel somehow decided to also barge into that particular conversational piece. Let's jump into this article, which pretty much shows us exactly what is inside the Xbox Series X. Now, I know many people who play on console, you may be thinking to yourselves, well, how is this even a thing? Well, here it is. AMD's 4800S desktop kit is a repurposed Xbox Series X APU for the PC market. So basically, this is your Xbox Series X's APU. This is what's inside of the Series X. And they basically have a repurposed version for the PC market where they basically disabled the graphics components on these APUs and added a PCIe port where you could actually install a graphics card, and they sold these in China. Now, we're going to read this, and it says, in a stealthy 2021 release, I'm going to zoom in, AMD launched the 4700S desktop kit, followed by the introduction of the 4800S model 1 year later. Both kits are based on console hardware that is not fully functional, particularly affecting the built-in graphics. So apparently, I don't know if these were like, I think I've heard somebody say these were kind of defunct in their production. Then so they decided they were just going to repurpose it and still make money out of it. So while the Xbox and the PS5 APUs could be considered as high-end APU options for everyday computing, their dated Zen 2 architecture, lack of optimizations, and limited platform capability do present some drawbacks. The AMD 4800S, unlike its 4700S kit, utilizes the Xbox Series X APU, featuring a larger processor with 8 Zen 2 cores and 3,320 RDNA 2 GPU cores, which unfortunately have been disabled. A significant number of these processors were manufactured with broken graphics that did not meet AMD and Microsoft standards for the Series X. Instead of discarding these chips, AMD decided to build a whole desktop platform around the APU, making them available to some users. Now, many people don't necessarily know this particular aspect of the conversation, but again, I've always kind of laughed, and sometimes when I would say it and say, your console is actually a gaming PC, or a PC, it's got the capability of actually, performing computing tasks. In fact, it even delves into some other major, computing tasks that you probably just kind of looked over. Like the PlayStation 5 has a full-blown video editor inside of the darn thing. It's insane. Like, you can sit there and you can actually edit full videos into it. I mean, at some point, we have to just reconcile that these things are straight-up computers, and that's what they've always been. The video game was always called a computer game because this is something that was always, recognized as computer graphics generated, computer graphics powered. It was in the marketing phase somewhere that we adopted the term the console, which was a video gaming device that allowed for portability and allowed for friendliness for you to be able to put into your living room without having to connect your computer to, without having to sit at your desk and then play. So this was the couch version, basically marketed for us in a sense. And so when you look at, this particular setup here and you look at what this was used for, it will be very surprising to most of you. Some of you may not be surprised, but let's keep reading. And these are pictures of it, by the way. This is the 4700 desktop kit. This is the 4800 S desktop kit. I don't know if, something similar is what's actually inside of the Series S. We don't really know what's in that one yet. It could be something similar to the 4700S, but we know that their CPUs are the same. So possibly their GPU cores are probably what, is modified in the Series S versus the X. The 4800S does offer a major upgrade over the 4700S, particularly in terms of PCIe bandwidth and modern interface availability. Unlike the 4700S kit, which lacked an M2 slot for fast storage, the 4800S kit boasts two M2 slots, one for storage and another for an optional Wi-Fi interface. Furthermore, the PCIe slot now offers more bandwidth, no longer limited in the graphics performance of the PCIe Gen 2, times 4 spec, but using Gen 4x4 interface instead. The 4800S addresses these limitations, offering twice as many SATA ports, an NVMe slot, a better cooler, and while GPU bandwidth remains limited, the 4X PCIe, the PCIe 4.0 interface allows for good results with higher end graphics cards. So it's actually a system that you can actually test out. And Digital Foundry basically went ahead and ran some tests comparing it with the Ryzen 5 3600, comparing it with the Ryzen 7 4750G, and also, comparing it with the Ryzen 5 7600. So these CPUs, well, the CPU here was actually tested with a number of other CPUs. And at some point in the test, you could see that there were disparities as you started going on. Like in Crysis Remastered, you notice that, they did a percentage type, I would say comparison or comparative analysis. And you could see, like, say in Crysis, if the CPU was running at 100% in terms of its performance, other CPUs were able to dish out a few more in terms of their performance. Like the Ryzen 5 3600 was able to dish out 113.6 of whatever the 4800S was doing, and the Ryzen 5 7600 was doing 242%. So basically, that CPU pretty much blows, that one out of the water in some games. In some other games, it just seemed like, you couldn't really get too much of a difference, if you actually know exactly what I mean. So one thing that a lot of people are not necessarily pointing out to is you're actually gaming on a gaming PC that is actually restricted and regulated by the manufacturer. And this is just the only difference. In software and in the hardware, they basically put it in a place where this is all that you can get. Now, to my criticism of why I think this has been somewhat, in a sense, confusing for a lot of gamers, especially in this generation. You see, for the most part, a lot of people have basically adopted this whole console mindset. And so when they basically sold them that these things are going to do 60 FPS and 4K and 8K and whatnot, a lot of people did not necessarily realize that when you actually think about these kinds of metrics, you must consider them based on the power of your hardware. And this is basically how any PC user looks at their hardware. They look at it from the perspective of what the hardware is capable of doing per game that has been made. And I know many might still say, but I think it was Aaron Greenberg out of Xbox that said the standard output should be 60 FPS, which is true. The game can actually provide a standard 60 FPS output. That is if the software supports it. But if the software doesn't support it, there's nothing that the device can do. In fact, I have a Ryzen, an RTX 2060 laptop. If the thing cannot play a game at 60 FPS, it is what it is. But here's the challenge with a laptop like that, is it also faces the challenge for the most part of what the consoles face. You can't change your CPU, you can't change your GPU. It just comes the way it is. So again, even in the computer world, these same challenges are faced. And if a laptop is already falls short of, playing a video game, that's just the reality, right? And the console, which is also basically a gaming PC, will face those challenges as well. And I think here, again, is another, challenge I have with this whole conversation, especially with the Xbox, is that Microsoft could have easily given their consoles a lot more longevity. And in my opinion, a lot more of its potential could have been realized. Why do I say so? Well, simply because of the fact that this article says that whatever is inside this stuff is actually basically high-end APU, options for everyday computing. You could run Windows on this particular device, and you could have been able to get access to a lot more when it comes to, pretty much how you're able to, use your console and what, options you're able to basically get when it comes down to, running, say, Windows and running all kinds of different apps on there. But again, because the console paradigm is that you want to keep everybody inside of your ecosystem and all of that stuff, Well, here we are. Microsoft is wanting to now do this thing that it could have done a while ago with your Series X. It wants to do it with the next generation of consoles, basically a selling point. And that's basically bringing things like Steam and Epic Games possibly to to their platform, which I think will basically be the end of the entire console uniqueness in a sense. Maybe it's just going to give you an option to be able to now play your gaming library on the Xbox platform, including the other libraries, and also kind of making people see a juxtaposition of the Microsoft PC store with the Epic Game Store and the Steam Store, and probably also a merging of all of this. I'm telling you, there's a secret sauce behind this intention, and I think it benefits Xbox even more than all the others that are, in a sense, going to be involved in this particular, I would say, collaboration if they actually get it done. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is how I think we should be looking at today's console, exactly what it is that they are in terms of their hardware. And then in terms of their software, we also need to be paying very close attention to ensure that we know that these software, paradigms are designed maybe as a sense of quality control. But in the case of Xbox, I don't think that makes any sense. They could have simply just opened it up for its users to be able to just enjoy what it had to offer in the first place. There was just no need to go ahead and lock down the ecosystem, in my own opinion. But anyways, I want to go ahead and make this video and just point this out, because I'm sure a lot of folk may not necessarily have considered this angle. It's one that I think is very important that also needs to be talked about. So thanks so much for watching the video. I appreciate you guys' time and audience. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.